Learning filmmaking is confusing and challenging. There's a ton of information out there. Where do you even begin? I'm here to tell you that learning filmmaking is way easier than you might think. The usual learning curve of someone who wants to learn filmmaking looks something like this. They spend a long time thinking about wanting to learn filmmaking and not taking action on it. And they confuse the action of thinking about wanting to do it with actually doing it. Now, what are the differences that make people, instead of going through this learning curve, go through this learning curve? We're talking about a level of proficiency where you have gear and you know how to use it. You know exactly how to control it to get the result that you want from it. And then you have full control over how to make an image look the way you want. Some people might call it how to make an image look cinematic. You know all of the key concepts of cinematography. So you have control on how you frame shots. You know how to make your shots look beautiful by using light and color. And you know exactly how to plan your shots so every time you get a visually captivating result. So how can you get from complete beginner to proficient good in just a few weeks? The system behind learning filmmaking is like any system of learning any complex skill. And I found this quote from this report about Olympic swimmers, and I feel like this applies one-on-one to you learning filmmaking. And it goes like this. Superlative performance is really a confluence of dozens of small skills or activities, each one learned or stumbled upon, which have been carefully drilled into habit and then are fitted together in a synthesized whole. There is nothing extraordinary or superhuman in any of those actions. Only the fact that they are done consistently and correctly and altogether produce excellence. And this is the part that I love. When a swimmer learns a proper flip turn in the freestyle races, she will swim the race a bit faster. Then a streamlined push-off from the wall, with the arms squeezed together over the head and a little faster. Then how to place the hands in the water so no air is cupped in them. Then how to lift them over the water. Then how to lift weights to properly build strength, and how to eat the right foods, and how to wear the best suits for racing, and on and on and on. Each of those tasks seems small in itself, but each allows the athlete to swim a little bit faster. And having learned and consistently practiced all of them together and many more besides, the swimmer may compete in the Olympic Games. The little things really do count. This is how you need to look at learning filmmaking. So what are the steps in order to get your filmmaking skills in a few weeks? The first step is to break it down. We need to take filmmaking, and when you're learning the individual skills, break them down into very actionable small steps. Every single time you are trying to learn anything about filmmaking and it feels daunting, it's because that action or that particular skill is not broken down into small enough steps. For example, when people are learning to balance their gimbal for the first time, the gimbal is the stabilizer that you use in order to achieve smooth camera movement. And if you go on YouTube and look at tutorials, you might encounter tutorials that are along the lines of how to balance your gimbal in under 3 minutes. If you're going to try to balance your gimbal for the first time in under 3 minutes, that is exactly the level of overwhelm that you want to avoid. Instead, something that would be useful for you would be a course that is longer. It's not 3 minutes, it's maybe an hour, but that takes every single step of balancing that gimbal and breaks it down into the tiniest possible steps. So, for example, you would have step number 1. Take the gimbal out of the package. Is that difficult? That is not a daunting step. Okay, check. Step number 2. Identify the components in the box. Can you do that? Yes. Step number 3. Identify one specific plate and one specific screw. Can you do that? Yes. And if you go through maybe a 20-step process or a 50-step process of balancing your gimbal in an hour, you have a process that you can actually apply that is enjoyable, that is measurable, and at the end of which you will have successfully balanced your gimbal. And this learning technique applies to all of the skills that you need in order to be a filmmaker. How to use your camera, how to use your tripod, how to use your gimbal, All of these, how to use your lenses, how to use your ND filter, all of these skills need to be broken down into extremely small actionable steps. Step number 2, put everything in practice. Learning filmmaking is like learning how to swim. If you want to learn how to swim in theory, just from watching YouTube videos, if you get in the water, you're still not going to be a good swimmer. The only way to start swimming is to get in the water. So you first have to take all of the theory, break it down and learn it. And then step number 2, put everything that you learn on a theoretical level in practice. And this is something, again, that needs to be broken down into very, very small steps. What you need is to take all of the small individual notions and concepts that you have learned and individually put them into very conscious practice that is designed to specifically make you better, and obviously created by somebody that has the results that you want. And step number 3, evaluate. You need to know how to properly evaluate yourself as you're going through the process of learning. You need to have clarity at all times as you're learning of where you are and where you need to be, to know how to look at the images that you're starting to produce and to understand why they are not meeting the standards of the images that you have in your head and how to get there. So now you know the fastest system of how to learn filmmaking.